Hi, welcome to the Blueprints to Buildings podcast. I'm your host, Glen Palmer, and on this show, we interview the movers and the shakers in the world of property development and real estate. Now, this show is brought to you by a breakthrough in PropTech. It's a visual platform that some developers are quietly using to cut 11% off build costs and sell units before the first brick has been laid. It's already replacing traditional 3D models completely. And if you want to know how, just drop me a message on LinkedIn at Glen Palmer Secure or check out the show notes below. Now, today I am joined by Josie Correa. Is that how you say it, Josie?
Yep, Josie Legido Correa.
Legido Correa. She is a business development leader at JWR Construction Services Incorporated and Crew Miami president for 2025. Now, Josie is a connector in chief, known for building trust, driving growth, and being pleasantly persistent in an industry that runs on relationships. Josie, warm welcome to the show. Let's kick it off, shall we?
Let's do it.
So, Josie, as you know, this is one question that I ask absolutely everybody. If time travel became a reality and you had a chance to go back in time to who you were when you first started your career, what advice would the person that you are now tell your younger self?
So I think what I would say is don't be afraid to take risks. I think when we're younger, I think we're a little more, we're scared, right? We're just
Yeah.
starting off and we're not sure about what we don't know. And I would say, be more of a risk taker. Be willing to fail because I believe in failure is where we really learn and where we really understand, where we need to get better, where we have our shortcomings. And so I think in failure you actually learn and that learning becomes knowledge and makes you a better person all around, whether on a
Yeah.
personal level or a professional level.
Yeah.
So that's what I would probably tell myself. Don't be afraid, and
Yeah.
don't be afraid to not know it all.
Yeah. And you know what? The funny thing is my previous guest, that was pretty much word for word.
Hmm,
Not word for word, but very, very close to
interesting.
what he said. You know, failure is a part of learning. And one of the things that I find fascinating is I was scared of failure. I never wanted to fail. I still don't want to fail.
Right.
However, I think failure is just part and parcel of who we are. It's human nature, and it's how we deal with that failure is how we grow as a person. And,
100%.
and so, yeah, 100% agree with you there.
Hmm.
Failure is a part of life. Got to get used to it. One of the things is learn from your failures. You know,
That's right.
don't go around doing the same mistakes over and over again, expecting a different
A
result
different result.
because that's a definition of insanity.
For sure.
So
Agree 100%.
JWR operates in a crowded construction space. So what do you believe do you do fundamentally better than your competitors when it comes to the client experience and the long-term relationships?
What I can say is that we operate with all the same, technological stuff, all of the bells and whistles, all of the benefits that a large company, a large general contractor would give you. But the difference is that we are at the end of the day, we're a small to medium sized business and we're family owned business. And
Hmm.
so you have access, direct access to all of our decision makers. And when there's an issue on a job site or whatever, you're not having to go, through corporate America's, wheel or through all these layers of different, executives to get an answer. You're talking directly to our president and our senior vice president, our executive vice president, who are really the ones calling the shots. And so having access to them is huge.
Yeah.
And they're always accessible. They're always willing to go above and beyond. And they're always willing to sit at the table and find an amicable way to solve an issue. Because the
Yeah.
reality is that in construction, there's so many things that can go wrong. And so really how you deal with those issues is I think what sets us apart. I always say, our president is a guy who was in the he was oh gosh, not the Navy, but anyways, he was in the Marines and one of those. And when you've been in that type of an environment, he doesn't sweat the small stuff. You
Yeah.
know, so he's somebody that is extremely approachable, super down to earth, and just willing again to sit at the table and figure out how we're gonna, resolve this issue. We always say that we excel in business because we partner with our clients by becoming an extension of their construction division, as
Hmm.
opposed to being, a company that you hire. We partner with our
Yeah.
clients and we become an extension of their business.
Yeah.
And
That's a
that is
good
a
way to
true
put it.
statement.
Yeah, a really good way to put it. And from your vantage point in Miami and crew, what shifts are you seeing in the commercial real estate and construction? And where are the firms going to be winning and where they're going to be losing over the next 5 years?
So I think one of the main shifts that happened after COVID, after the pandemic, and the cost of construction going so incredibly high as it has, is that nowadays, if you don't do pre-construction, in other words, if you're just thinking that you're going to, as a developer, sit together with the design team, meaning the architects and the engineers, and you're going to design a project from A to Z and get to the point where you have construction documents, and then you're going to send it out to a couple of GCs to get pricing, that no longer works.
Yeah.
If you're not at the table, or I should say, if we as a general contractor are not at the table from the very early phases, meaning right after schematics, we are brought in as a partner. And you can do that, through a request for qualifications. You find the horse that you want you to lead you to the races, and you bring us on board early through an agreement or however else, a GC is willing to do it. But we need to be at the table because we're the ones that really understand what things cost,
Hmm.
and we've got our feet on the ground.
Yeah.
And so we can tell you if a project is going in the right direction or going in the wrong direction. And, nowadays, I mean, any project in my opinion, any project that doesn't have a good pre-construction ahead of time and you're at the table working with, usually will not move forward.
Yeah.
It will have to be shelved because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, the price is going to be anywhere between 30 to 40% over cost. Because again, a lot of the times, all of the design teams, as well as they design, they don't necessarily know what some of the systems cost. And so they might be over designing
Yeah.
and putting things into the project that are not economically feasible for the project's budget.
Yeah.
And so to me, the most important thing has been really what pre-construction has done to this industry over the last couple of years. So anybody who's not doing that and hasn't invested in their pre-con division and made sure that they, are experts at what they do. I mean, we've come to the point where we give somebody a rough order of magnitude, we're coming within 5% of a GMP.
Right. Wow.
That's huge.
Yeah.
So, right there, you have the ability to pivot and decide, okay, what am I going to do? How am I going to make these numbers tighter so that we can actually move forward on the
Mm.
project? So,
Wow.
yeah,
And then you talk
huge.
about, the trust and the pleasant persistence. So, in your experience, what's the difference between a follow-up that builds relationships and a follow-up that kills deals?
So number one, like it says pleasantly, number one, I always try to be extremely pleasant and not too pushy.
Always nice to
I
be nice.
Yeah, exactly. And I heard from, somebody who was a mentor years ago, people want to work with people they like and people they trust.
Yeah.
So, but first and foremost, they have to like you. So you have to be pleasant. You can't be too pushy. And the other way that I do it in order to build that level of trust, right, is I'm a resource. I try to give them all the knowledge that I have and that we as a firm that has been around for 41 years, the knowledge that we've built and the knowledge that I have built working with my pre-con division, I share that knowledge openly with any developer that I'm talking to. And I'm also there to provide connections to others in the industry that can help them get their project across the board. And that means, and I always say, I don't want anything from it. I just want you to keep me in mind when you're ready to build. But I am willing to make those connections, whether they're looking for financing, whether they're looking, for an equity partner, whether they need a consultant,
Hmm.
whether it's really early on and they're still trying to figure out who's going to be the architect. I am there as a resource, and they realize that I'm not just in it to build it, but I'm in it to build a relationship. We're not only building buildings, we're building a relationship, and that takes time and it takes
Yeah.
trust. And how do I do that? I do that by being a resource for them, by giving them a lot more than they expected from their GC.
Yeah. Always over deliver. That's what I say.
Always over deliver, for sure.
Yeah. So many stakeholders struggle to see a project before the ground has actually been broken. So, how valuable, in your experience, would you think 3D visualization or digital twins could be in helping developers, investors, or even end users gain confidence early in that decision process?
So we as a firm already, well, as you know, most GCs these days do use 3D virtual design and 3D modeling. It has been extremely valuable. Number one, it takes, abstract ideas, right? And lets
Yeah.
everybody be able to visualize those ideas. Many of the challenges that come from construction come from misaligned expectations, and this tool helps to close that gap. So I would say that that's huge. One of the, I would say in the pre-construction side of it as well, we're putting these models and putting them together in the very early stages. And we're trying to find ways to also use it for early integration on the site, meaning how are we going to lay out the site? How are logistics? How is our MOT? It is used not only later during construction, but it also is used, to improve clarity and
Hmm.
alignment very early on. It helps stakeholders understand and reduce uncertainty, which comes from a lot of these projects. And it allows you to provide, to make informed decisions very early on before construction begins. So
Yeah.
you're catching any of those clashes, you're catching, again, how you're setting up that site from the very early stages, phasing it, whatever it may be. So it's been a game changer. We now have that in-house, and a lot of GCs, even the smaller ones or mid-size like we have about 35 employees at this point, are adopting this and are getting, people in-house to do this work. We hired somebody who has a PhD. She's been in the industry for years and has really proven, that this is a tool that, we have to have in our tool chest if we want to be successful in the future. And it's
Yeah.
definitely, it's here to stay, never going anywhere anymore. Definitely. And again, it provides better coordination. It provides so many tools that are important to our trade. So
Yeah.
can't
And then
tell you
moving on
enough.
from that, so if a clearer visual communication could reduce misalignment, which it does, rework and delays, where do you think it would have the biggest commercial impact? Now, is that in pre-construction? Is it in a stakeholder approval? Is it in client handover? Or is it all of the above?
It is all of the above, but I would have to say that in pre-construction is where the value is either locked in or it's lost.
Yeah.
So, early on, this type of visualization, improves constructability reviews. So if you're looking at it from that standpoint, or you've got a city or, that are trying to figure out things, trade coordination is extremely important. Sequencing the work before anything actually starts. When the design intent interfaces and constraints are clear and understood, there's a lot less RFIs.
Mhm.
RFIs can be a huge burden for a project manager, just the consistency of those. So, you're automatically reducing time. You're being able to, usually there's also cost overruns and schedule delays that are all caused by, the delays in construction, by not the constructability, by, not, having everything lined up as it should. So all of these things also reduce time, and time is money in this world. At the end of the day, the longer that the project takes to break ground, the longer, things come into play, whether it's, paying back the loan. I mean, we do mostly apartments. We're not doing necessarily condos per se. Most of our work is in the apartment space. But again, anything of that nature that isn't being handled upfront is going to cause a problem later down the road in terms of delays. And so, late changes and issues that typically drive crossover and schedule delays can be anticipated ahead of time and dealt with. And
Yeah.
so that's huge. But also, if you look at, you asked about client handover, the gains in handover are instrumental as well. I mean, compared to the cost and it can risk avoidance, which can be achieved much earlier. 3D modeling is not my expertise. So I was talking a little bit to our BIM coordinator and we were kind of going over some things. So she gave me some notes, but I mean, again, clearly understand that delays are huge in our industry and
Yeah.
everything these days is taking a lot longer. So anything you can put into a project, whether it's early on and you're trying to really figure out how things can be built way before you get out to the field is huge.
Yeah.
As it is, things are taking, approvals. We have issues with FP&L that we have to deal with on a regular basis. I mean, there's, utilities and things that sometimes come up that you're not
Yeah.
anticipating in terms of
Yeah.
delays. So anything that we can do on the upfront side early on is huge and
Yeah.
incredibly valuable.
Yeah, it helps with that communication aspect as well, doesn't it? So, you can get all
100%.
stakeholders from all different areas all working together on one using one of these 3D modeling tools, which is fantastic. Well,
Yeah.
Josie, we're nearing the end of the show. You really loved our conversation on the construction aspects and what you guys do. Thanks for being my guest today.
My pleasure.
Once again, thanks to the listeners and the views on YouTube as well. Josie, just before we sign off, now, if listeners or viewers want to get in contact with you, learn about what you are actually offering at JWR Construction Services, what's the best way for our guys to do that?
You can either give me a call, happy to share my cell number if that's good. And
Yeah,
if not, yeah, it's 305-632-1014. Or you can send me an email at jcorrea@jwrconstruction.com. Always happy to help. And even if we're eventually not the right fit for your project, if I can help you any way along the way with connections or whatever, always happy to do it. It's a great way for me to get to know people in the industry. And I just love what I do and I love connecting people. So happy to do it.
brilliant. And well, that wraps up today's episode. And if
Thank you,
you're
Glenn.
still wondering about that prop tech thing I mentioned at the start, good. You should be. Drop me a message and I'll show you what the early adopters are up to. You've been listening to Blueprints to Buildings podcast. I'm your host, Glen Palmer. I was joined today by Josie Correa. Thanks again for listening and watching, and I'll see you on the next episode.